Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something straight from the heart. In life, there are countless lessons, countless ideas, countless strategies. People will give you advice at every corner. Some good, some bad, some that will light you up, and some that will drag you down. But if I told you that there is one piece of advice, one principle so powerful, so life-altering, that if you truly accept it and live it, everything in your life, your success, your relationships, your health, your happiness would transform forever. Would you be open to hearing it? Here it is. You are 100% responsible for your life. Not 5%, not 80%, not when things are easy, not when circumstances are convenient. 100% all the time. That is the greatest advice you will ever receive. Because the moment you take full responsibility, you reclaim your power. And the moment you reclaim your power, you become unstoppable. Think about it. How often do we fall into the trap of blaming others? We blame our parents, our past, the economy, the government, our boss, our partner, our kids, even ourselves in a way that becomes toxic. But here's the truth. Blame is a story, and stories can either chain you down or set you free. When you live in blame, you're saying, I'm powerless. I can't change my circumstances. But when you choose responsibility, you're saying, I am the author of my life. I get to write the script. Responsibility doesn't mean everything that happens is your fault. It doesn't mean you chose every challenge, every pain, every loss. What it means is you have the ability to respond, the ability to choose how you will use it and how you will rise from it, how you will turn it into fuel for your future. That shift changes everything. The greatest leaders, the most fulfilled people, the ones who've created lives of impact, didn't do it because they had perfect conditions. They did it because they stopped waiting. They stopped wishing. They stopped hoping someone would come along and save them. They took ownership. They said, no matter what's happened to me, no matter what's happening right now, I am responsible for what I do with it. You want a better body? Take responsibility for what you eat, how you move, how you rest. You want a stronger relationship. Take responsibility for how you show up, how you love, how you listen, how you communicate. You want more money, more freedom, more joy. Stop pointing fingers. Stop waiting for luck and start taking ownership of your thoughts, your actions, your standards. Because here's the deal. Responsibility and freedom are two sides of the same coin. The moment you say, I'm responsible, is the moment you unlock freedom. Freedom from excuses, freedom from victimhood, freedom from being stuck. Responsibility gives you the steering wheel of your life back in your hands. Let me ask you right now, where in your life are you waiting for someone else to fix it? Where are you telling yourself a story that it's out of your control? What would happen if starting today you stopped waiting? What if you said, I'm done with excuses, I'm done with blame, I am responsible? I promise you, the moment you do this, your energy will shift. You'll stop feeling like life is happening to you and start realizing life is happening for you. Every challenge becomes a teacher. Every setback becomes a setup for a comeback. Every problem becomes the raw material for your growth. The greatest advice you will ever receive is simple, but it's not easy. Most people will reject it because responsibility feels heavy. But here's the paradox. When you carry responsibility, life actually gets lighter. Because the weight of blame, the weight of excuses, the weight of victimhood, it's far heavier than the weight of ownership. So here's my challenge for you. Leave here today and decide that you will never again give your power away. Decide that you are responsible for your thoughts, your emotions, your decisions, your destiny. Decide that you will own your life in every area. Because the moment you do, you'll stop waiting for the greatest advice you'll ever receive. You'll be living it. Taking 100% responsibility for your life is the single most powerful shift you can ever make, because it changes not only what you do, but who you become. When you embrace this principle, you eliminate the possibility of excuses, you remove the option of blame, and you stop waiting for external forces to change your circumstances. You begin to live as the cause of your life rather than the effect. This doesn't mean you control everything that happens to you, but it does mean you control how you respond, what meaning you attach, and what actions you take next. That distinction is everything, because life will always bring adversity, challenges, and situations beyond your choosing, but the way you experience them and the results you create are entirely in your hands. Most people are conditioned to believe that their outcomes depend on luck, on circumstances, on other people, or on forces they can't control. They live in a cycle of waiting for something to change. They wait for a new opportunity, a different boss, a kinder partner, a better economy. They think if only things out there would shift, they could finally live the way they want. But the truth is, when you live with that mindset, you give away your power. You hand over the keys to your destiny and sit in the passenger seat, hoping someone else will drive you to the place you want to be. Taking responsibility puts you back in the driver's seat. It's saying, no matter what's going on around me, I am the one who decides how the story goes. Think about any area of your life that matters to you. Your health, your career, and your relationships, your finances, your sense of joy and fulfillment. In every one of these areas, results don't come from luck. They come from habits, from standards, from consistent choices made day after day. If you're not where you want to be, the easy route is to blame circumstances or blame other people. But the liberating truth is that you can take responsibility and change the trajectory right now. If your body isn't in the condition you want, you can take responsibility by deciding what you eat, how you move, how you rest. If your career is stagnant, you can take responsibility by developing new skills and reaching out for opportunities, shifting your mindset, and committing to growth. If your relationships feel shallow or strained, you can take responsibility by showing up differently, by listening more deeply, by bringing love, empathy, and presence. Responsibility puts the focus where it belongs, on you and the choices you can make today. It's important to understand that responsibility is not the same as fault. Many people resist this principle because they confuse the two. They think taking responsibility means blaming themselves for everything bad that has happened. That is not the case. Things happen in life that are not your fault. You didn't choose your childhood. You didn't choose every loss or setback. You didn't choose to be betrayed or disappointed. But responsibility isn't about fault. It's about response. It's about owning how you move forward. You may not have chosen the event, but you always choose the meaning you attach to it, the lesson you take from it, and the action you commit to because of it. When you decide to live this way, you stop being a victim of circumstance and you start being a creator of circumstance. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, how can I use this? What can I learn from this? How can I turn this into fuel? That single shift in perspective opens up new levels of strength and creativity you didn't know you had. People who have faced unimaginable hardships and still gone on to live extraordinary lives have one thing in common. They chose responsibility over victimhood. They decided not to let their story define them, but to define their story themselves. Taking 100% responsibility also means eliminating excuses. Every time you make an excuse, you're giving yourself permission to stay stuck. Excuses are the language of limitation. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the connections. I don't have the talent. The truth is, people with less time, less money, fewer connections, and fewer natural gifts have built incredible lives because they stopped buying their own excuses and started asking better questions. Instead of saying, I can't, they asked, how can I? Instead of saying, I don't have enough, they ask, what can I do with what I have right now? When you stop entertaining excuses, your brain finds solutions. And when you find solutions, you begin to create momentum. Another element of responsibility is raising your standards. Responsibility doesn't just mean doing the minimum to get by. It means holding yourself to a higher level. It means recognizing where you've been settling, where you've been tolerating mediocrity, where you've been allowing yourself to drift and deciding that's no longer acceptable. When you raise your standards, you automatically raise the quality of your decisions and your results. You begin to expect more from yourself than anyone else expects from you. And that shift creates a ripple effect, because when you elevate your own standards, the people around you are influenced as well. Responsibility is contagious. Owning your life at 100% also requires emotional responsibility. And it's easy to think our feelings are caused by external events. But in reality, our emotions come from the meaning we attach to events. Two people can experience the exact same circumstance and feel completely different about it because they've chosen different meanings. Taking responsibility means recognizing that you generate your own emotions. No one can make you angry without your permission. No one can make you feel small without your agreement. No one can rob you of your peace without your cooperation. When you accept this truth, you stop being controlled by what others say or do, and you begin to master your own state. The same principle applies to your thoughts. Taking responsibility means noticing the patterns of thinking that have been holding you back and choosing new ones. It means refusing to let fear, doubt, or negativity dominate your mind and instead filling it with thoughts that empower you. Your thoughts create your beliefs. Your beliefs create your actions, and your actions create your results. So if you want to transform your results, start by taking responsibility for the thoughts you allow to live in your mind. Responsibility is not always comfortable. In fact, it often feels heavy at first because it means there's no one left to blame. But that initial weight is actually the key to freedom, because once you take full ownership, you realize you don't have to wait anymore. You don't have to wait for approval, for permission, for perfect timing for someone else to change. You can move now, you can act now, you can create now. And that realization is incredibly freeing. The difference between people who live extraordinary lives and those who remain stuck is not talent, intelligence, or luck. It is the decision to take responsibility. Extraordinary people are not those who never face challenges. They are those who face challenges and say, this is mine to handle. This is mine to learn from. This is mine to use. They don't ask for an easier path. They ask to become stronger, wiser, more resourceful. Responsibility gives them that strength. Responsibility gives them that wisdom. Responsibility gives them that resourcefulness. When you look at the greatest turning points in your life, you'll notice they came from a decision. A moment when you stopped blaming, stopped making excuses, stopped waiting, and decided to own your life fully. Every breakthrough begins with that choice. Every transformation starts with responsibility. And the beautiful thing is, you can make that choice again and again in every area, at every stage. It's not a one-time event, it's a way of living. Shifting from victim to creator is one of the most profound transformations any human being can make, because it alters the very lens through which you view the world and yourself. As long as you live in the role of the victim, life will always feel like it is happening to you. You will feel powerless, reactive, at the mercy of circumstances, people, and events outside your control. But the moment you decide to step into the role of creator, everything changes. Life no longer becomes a chain of things you endure. It becomes a canvas upon which you design, shape, and build the experience you want. The transition is not about pretending pain doesn't exist. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about realizing that you are not defined by what happens to you, but by what you choose to do with what happens. When you are living as a victim, your energy is consumed by questions like, why me? Why is this happening? Why can't things just be different? These questions may feel justified in the moment, but they keep you locked in the same cycle of disempowerment. They lead you to believe that something else must change before you can feel good again. The victim waits for rescue, waits for permission, waits for circumstances to magically align. The creator asks different questions. Instead of, why me? The creator asks, what can I learn? What can I create out of this? How can I use this to move forward? The creator doesn't wait, they act. The creator doesn't complain, they design. The creator doesn't see themselves as powerless. They see themselves as capable of transforming even the hardest circumstances into fuel. And every person has moments of hardship, disappointment, and loss. That is part of being alive. But what separates those who rise from those who remain stuck is not the absence of difficulty, but the refusal to stay in the role of a victim. Imagine two people losing the same job. One sees it as a catastrophe, proof that life is against them, a sign that they are unlucky, unworthy, or incapable. They spiral into frustration and despair, blaming the company, the economy, their co-workers. Another person experiences the exact same event, but chooses a different role. They see it as an opportunity, as a push to finally pursue a passion, as a wake-up call to develop new skills, as a challenge to grow stronger. Both people lost the same job, but their future outcomes will be worlds apart because of the role they chose, victim or creator. The shift is not about denying reality. It is about owning your ability to create within reality. A victim can stare at the storm and say, "This storm has ruined my plans." A creator can look at the same storm and ask, "How do I navigate this? How do I prepare myself? How can I even use this to build resilience for the future?" It is not about pretending the storm doesn't exist. It is about refusing to let the storm decide your story. This is the essence of stepping out of victimhood. Acknowledging what is, but refusing to be limited by it. When you choose to live as a creator, you tap into resourcefulness you didn't know you had. A victim waits for resources to appear. A creator generates them. A victim says, "I don't have what I need." A creator asks, "How can I create what I need out of what I already have?" Think about some of the greatest innovations, the most inspiring stories of achievement. They were born not in comfort, but in challenge. People who had every reason to see themselves as victims chose instead to become creators. They built businesses from nothing. They turned tragedy into causes that helped millions. They transformed personal setbacks into platforms for change. What they had in common was not perfect conditions, but a refusal to remain powerless. One of the traps of victimhood is that it feels familiar and sometimes even safe because it absolves you of responsibility. If you are a victim, then it is not your fault, and if it is not your fault, you don't have to act. But safety is an illusion because the cost of staying in victimhood is far greater than the discomfort of responsibility. When you live as a victim, you hand away your power. You allow other people, past events, or outside circumstances to dictate how you feel and what you do. It may feel safe to wait, but in reality, you are stuck in a cage of your own making. Stepping into the role of creator requires courage because it demands that you stop pointing outward and start looking inward. It demands that you recognize your choices, your actions, and your mindset are the ultimate factors shaping your life. Living as a creator also changes how you relate to time. Victims are trapped in the past, replaying old wounds and disappointments. They carry their stories of hurt and injustice like heavy bags, bringing them into every new opportunity. Creators honor the past, but they do not live there. They extract the lessons and then move forward, focused on shaping what comes next. Victims are always waiting for the future, hoping things will magically improve. Creators bring their attention to the present moment and ask, what can I do right now to create momentum, to create change, to create a different future? That difference in focus makes all the difference in results. Another profound aspect of moving from victim to creator is the shift in language. Listen to the words of a victim and you will hear disempowerment. I don't have a choice. It's not fair. Listen to the words of a creator and you will hear ownership. I am committed to, I will find a way. I'm creating something better. Language is not just communication, it is creation. The words you use shape your identity and your experience. By consciously shifting the words you use, you begin to embody the role of creator at a deeper level. Embracing this shift also impacts your relationships. Victims often attract other victims because the shared energy of complaint and blame feels comfortable. Conversations revolve around problems, unfairness, and what's wrong. Creators, on the other hand, attract other creators. They are drawn to people who are focused on solutions, possibilities, and growth. This shift can sometimes mean letting go of relationships built on shared victimhood, but in doing so, you open space for empowering connections that elevate you instead of holding you down. At its core, Moving from victim to creator is a choice. It's not a one-time decision, but a continual practice. Every day presents moments where you can either shrink into blame or step into creation. When someone criticizes you, do you become a victim of their words, or do you use it as feedback to grow? When plans fall apart, do you collapse into frustration, or do you create a new plan? When life surprises you with difficulty, do you give away your power, or do you say, I may not have chosen this, but I will choose how I use it? The beauty of this principle is that no matter where you are, no matter how long you've been living in victimhood, you can choose to step into creation today. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to wait. You can decide in this moment to see yourself not as someone things happen to, but as someone who creates with whatever life brings. That decision alone begins to shift your energy, your perspective, and your possibilities. Raising your standards and committing to action is the foundation of real transformation, because nothing in life improves permanently until your standards rise. Every person in the world has goals, dreams, and desires, but the gap between those who achieve them and those who don't is not luck, not talent, not timing. It is the standard they set for themselves and the level of commitment they bring to their actions. Standards are not wishes. They are not preferences. They are the rules you live by, the expectations you refuse to negotiate with. When you decide that something is no longer acceptable in your life and that you will demand more of yourself, that is the moment everything begins to change. Most people live with standards that are shaped by their environment, by their friends, by their family, by society. If they accept the average income of the people around them, the average level of health, the average level of energy, the average level of fulfillment. They normalize mediocrity because it feels comfortable, because it doesn't require rocking the boat, because it allows them to fit in. But if you want a life that is extraordinary, you cannot live by average standards. You must decide that what is acceptable to others is no longer acceptable to you. That your health matters too much to tolerate neglect. That your dreams matter too much to tolerate procrastination. That your relationships matter too much to tolerate disconnection. Raising your standards is about drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is who I am now. This is what I will demand of myself, and I will not settle for less. It is easy to talk about raising standards, but the real test is in action. Standards without action are fantasies. If you say you want more energy, but you don't change the way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you move, your standard is just a hope. If you say you want financial freedom, but you don't manage your money, you don't learn new skills, you don't push yourself to grow in your career, then your standard is just a wish. If you say you want love and connection, but you don't show up with vulnerability, honesty, and effort, then your standard is just a dream. Commitment is what turns standards into reality. Commitment means doing what is necessary and not just what is convenient. Commitment means acting even when you don't feel like it, even when it's hard, even when no one else is watching. Commitment means aligning your daily actions with the higher vision you've set for yourself. Think about it. Every area of your life right now is a reflection of your standards. The body you have is a reflection of the standards you have set for your health. The money in your bank account is a reflection of the standards you have set for your finances. The depth of your relationships is a reflection of the standards you have set for how you show up with others. The energy, joy, and fulfillment you feel is a reflection of the standards you have set for how you live each day. If you want to change any of those areas, the first thing you must do is raise the standard. Decide that what you once tolerated, you will no longer tolerate. Decide that what once seemed acceptable is no longer acceptable. There is a huge difference between should and must. People who live with should say things like, I should work out, I should eat better, I should save money, I should spend more time with my family, I should start that project, but it creates no lasting change because it leaves room for excuses and procrastination. Must is different. Must means non-negotiable. Must means you find a way no matter what. Must means you will endure discomfort you will push past resistance. You will rise after failure because you are no longer willing to live below that standard. The moment you turn your shoulds into musts, your life begins to shift. Commitment to action requires discipline, but discipline is not punishment. It is the highest form of self-respect. Discipline is the willingness to do what needs to be done to honor your standards and your vision. Every time you act in alignment with your higher standard, you build trust with yourself. You strengthen your identity as someone who follows through, someone who creates results, someone who refuses to live small. That identity becomes self-reinforcing. The more you act in alignment, the more you see yourself as the kind of person who deserves extraordinary results, and the more you demand of yourself in the future. It's not about giant leaps every day. It's about consistent action. Raising your standards doesn't mean you have to change everything at once. It means you stop settling and you start moving. Small daily actions, repeated consistently, create massive long-term results. A single workout doesn't change your body, but a commitment to health every day will. One act of kindness doesn't transform a relationship, but showing up with love and presence every day will. One financial decision doesn't create wealth, but disciplined choices over years will. Commitment is not about intensity for a day, it is about consistency over a lifetime. When you raise your standards, you will face resistance, not just from within yourself, but from the world around you. People may tell you you're being unrealistic, that you should settle, that you should be satisfied with what you have. They may even criticize you for wanting more. But often their resistance is not about you, it's about them. When you raise your standards, you shine a light on the standards they have chosen to accept, and that can make them uncomfortable. Do not let their comfort dictate your destiny. Your life is your responsibility, and if you want more, you must demand more of yourself, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Raising your standards also requires clarity. You cannot commit to action if you don't know what you're aiming for. Get clear about what you will no longer tolerate and what you will absolutely require of yourself. Write it down, declare it, make it real. The more specific you are, the stronger your commitment will be. Clarity creates focus, and focus creates momentum. Once you know exactly what your new standard is, every decision becomes simpler. Does this action align with my standard or not? If it does, you do it. If it doesn't, you don't. That kind of clarity removes the noise and makes it easier to stay committed. The beauty of raising your standards is that once you do it in one area of your life, it begins to spill into others. If you raise your standards for your health, you will find yourself with more energy and focus for your work. If you raise your standards for your work, you will feel more confident and fulfilled, which spills into your relationships. If you raise your standards for your relationships, the emotional fulfillment you feel will inspire you to pursue bigger goals in other areas. It becomes a cycle of growth because higher standards in one area elevate the whole quality of your life. At the core, raising your standards and committing to action is about identity. It's about deciding who you are and then living in alignment with that decision. It's not about external validation. It's not about proving anything to anyone else. It's about knowing in your heart that you are living as the highest version of yourself. When you know your standards and you live them with full commitment, you experience a deep sense of integrity and power. You no longer need to wait for life to improve because you have taken full responsibility to improve it yourself. Turning every setback into fuel is one of the most powerful mindsets you can adopt because life will always present you with challenges, failures, disappointments, and moments where things don't go as planned. No one is immune to struggle. No one is spared from loss. No one escapes without facing obstacles. But what separates those who break under the weight of hardship from those who rise stronger is not the presence of difficulty. It is the decision about what to do with it. A setback is not the end. It is information. It is raw material. It is energy that can either drain you or drive you. The choice is always yours, whether you see it as a reason to stop or as fuel to go further. When most people encounter setbacks, Their instinct is to see them as proof that something isn't possible. They try once, it doesn't work, and they interpret that as failure. But what if failure doesn't exist? What if it is only feedback? Every time you fall short, every time you stumble, you are being given valuable information about what doesn't work, what needs to be improved, what can be adjusted. And the people who ultimately succeed are not those who never fail, and they are the ones who fail more than anyone else because they use each failure as a stepping stone instead of a stopping point. Every setback carries within it the seed of growth if you are willing to look for it and use it. Think about a rocket launching into space. The launch is not smooth. The rocket shakes, it faces resistance, it burns enormous amounts of fuel just to break free of the atmosphere. Without that resistance, it would never leave the ground. Your setbacks are the resistance you need to grow beyond your current limits. They are the weight that builds your strength, the fire that forges your resilience, the test that proves your commitment. If you only embraced what was easy, you would never evolve. It is the setbacks that force you to dig deeper, to get creative, to discover levels of determination and resourcefulness you didn't know you had. There are countless stories of people who turned devastating setbacks into the very thing that propelled them to greatness. Entrepreneurs who were bankrupt before they built empires. Athletes who suffered injuries that forced them to train differently and came back stronger. Artists whose rejections fueled their masterpieces. Leaders who faced defeat, humiliation, or loss, but used it as the driving force to rise again. What made them different was not they avoided setbacks, but that they refused to let those setbacks define them. They turned pain into power, rejection into redirection, loss into leverage. That is the power available to you the moment you decide to use every challenge as fuel. Turning setbacks into fuel begins with how you interpret them. If you see a setback as the end, it becomes a wall. If you see it as feedback, it becomes a doorway. The meaning you give to an event determines the action you take after it. For example, if you launch a business idea and it fails, you could choose to see that as evidence that you're not cut out for business, or you could choose to see it as priceless information about what doesn't work, insight that will make your next attempt more effective. If you experience heartbreak in a relationship, you could see it as proof that love is not for you, or you could see it as an opportunity to learn about yourself, about your needs, about how to love more deeply and fully in the future. The setback itself doesn't dictate your destiny. The meaning you attach to it does. Another critical part of turning setbacks into fuel is emotional mastery. When things go wrong, emotions can spiral. Anger, frustration, disappointment, shame, fear, all of these are natural responses. The key is not to deny them, but to channel them. Energy is energy. Anger can either destroy you or drive you. Fear can either paralyze you or focus you. Pain can either break you or build you. The difference lies in how you direct it. When you feel the fire of a setback, instead of suppressing it or letting it consume you, ask yourself, how can I use this? How can I turn this energy into action that moves me forward? That simple shift allows you to transform destructive emotions into constructive momentum. Commitment also plays a huge role. Many people give up at the first sign of difficulty because their commitment was shallow. They were interested, but not invested. They were trying, but not truly committed. A setback is the universe's way of testing how serious you are. Do you want it enough to try again, to learn, to adapt, to keep moving despite the pain? Or were you only willing as long as it was easy? When your commitment is real, a setback is nothing more than a challenge you use to sharpen your resolve. Every obstacle becomes proof that you are still in the fight, that you are still moving forward. Turning setbacks into fuel also requires long-term vision. In the moment, setbacks feel overwhelming, but when you step back and look at the bigger picture, you often realize they were exactly what you needed. Think of times in your past where something went wrong and you were devastated, but later you realized it redirected you to something better. The job you didn't get that pushed you to start your own business. The relationship that ended that opened the door to a healthier love. The mistake you made that forced you to grow in ways you never would have otherwise. In hindsight, setbacks often reveal themselves as setups for something greater. The key is to adopt that perspective now in the moment rather than only seeing it years later. Another strategy for using setbacks as fuel is to set standards for how you respond to them. Most people wait until something goes wrong to decide how to handle it, but creators decide in advance. They decide that no matter what happens, they will not quit. They will not lower their standards. They will not surrender their vision. They decide that every setback will be used as leverage to grow stronger. By making that decision before the challenge comes, you remove the option of giving up when it does. You condition yourself to see setbacks not as an exception, but as part of the process. It is also important to surround yourself with people who reinforce this mindset. Victims will encourage you to give up, to complain, to dwell in negativity. Creators will remind you of your vision, push you to see the lesson, challenge you to rise again. The energy you keep around you determines whether your setbacks drain you or fuel you. Choose people who see the fire inside you, not the ashes around you. Ultimately, setbacks are inevitable, but suffering is optional. Struggle is part of life, but being stuck is a choice. You can either let every obstacle add weight to your shoulders, or you can let it add strength to your character. The most fulfilled and successful people in the world are not those who avoided pain, but those who used pain. They didn't escape setbacks, they converted them. They didn't avoid rejection, they redirected it. They didn't fear failure, they leveraged it. They used every ounce of resistance as fuel to propel themselves forward, higher, stronger, until what once seemed impossible became inevitable. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe.